Welcome and hello to Going Well, I Think This. I, David Cooper, am. This is the show where no one's listening, no one cares, the show where every episode's the last episode. So let's make tonight's count. It's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. Therapist Gary Direnfeld and I are going to talk Father's Day. And also from a conversation I had yesterday, forgiveness. Gary's got a different take. I still think forgiveness is more for you than the other person and can be very healing, but Gary's got a more nuanced approach. Then it's technology expert Carmi Levy to proudly announce a fantastic new revolutionary product by Apple that was just announced at their worldwide developer conference. This is a product no one's ever heard about. Completely new, all designed by Apple. They even gave it an acronym that you've definitely not heard. That acronym is AI. They call it Apple Intelligence, which really shows unintelligence because it's the most stupidly named product I've ever heard. Let's take an existing acronym and just launch a product with the same words. Apple Intelligence. It's so dumb that foreign correspondent and I, Tony 5, are going to have to go over that as well when Carmi leaves. So therapy with Gary, tech with Carmi, and lunacy with Tony. What a show. What a show. It's going to be a great one. But first, this. This one sounds like a bad episode of The Twilight Zone. Alexander Morris, the lead singer of Motown's legendary Four Tops, what a great group, recently found himself at a Michigan hospital where things went completely off script. And no, not in the good improv way. In the horrible dystopian way. Morris, who's been with the group since 2018, walked into that hospital back in April, and he showed clear signs of cardiac distress, difficulty breathing, chest pain, the whole 9 yards. What would you do if you worked at that hospital? Treat him. And you'd think with someone like that, the staff would be all hands on deck, right? But when Morris mentioned that he was a member of the Four Tops and had concerns about stalkers, the hospital thought he was as delusional as someone walking into a zoo insisting they're the rightful heir to the Penguin Kingdom. So step 1, go into the hospital, say who you are. Step 2, they think you're delusional. So you're thinking, they probably just laughed it off, right? No, they put him in a straitjacket. And that, my friends, is one terrible way to treat a cardiac patient. Hey, let's restrain this guy who's having trouble breathing. That said no sensible medical professional ever. So instead of getting the treatment that he so desperately needed, Morris was ordered a mandatory psychiatric evaluation. Imagine that, being restrained, ordered a psych evaluation because they didn't believe he was a famous singer. It's like if someone threw me in a straitjacket because I say I'm a comedian, but not funny. Oh wait, that's a bad example. Morris claims he even had his oxygen turned off at one point. God, this whole experience is breathtaking and not in a good way. The artist, understandably, is now suing the hospital, claiming racial discrimination, negligence, battery, and intentional infliction of emotional distress. And if the facts are as in the report that I read, I think he's got a pretty good case. The whole situation sounds like a bad punchline. Four Top singer walks into a hospital and ends up in straitjacket. Oh wait. That was the exact headline I read. And while this is kind of funny, Morris is not laughing, and I am not laughing for him. I'm laughing at the hospital. The man has a known history of heart problems, and during that stay, he ended up needing a heart transplant, pneumonia treatment, and survived 3 seizures. The man needed help. So I honestly hope Morris gets the justice he deserves. But hey, if anyone doubts your celebrity next time you're at a hospital, just remember what my mother always says. It's better to carry your Grammy in your pocket than to end up in the psych ward. She's never said that. No one's ever said that. Gather round, folks. We go to Texas with breaking news from Rice University. The kind of news that makes you wonder if college students do in fact need a course on Partying 101. Because after 50 wild, underwear-clad years, Rice is officially canceling. It's putting the kibosh on the infamous Night of Decadence party. An underwear party. And no, it's not because the school finally realized how ridiculous grown adults look running around in their skivvies. No, it's because last fall's bash was so wild it sent 7 students to the hospital and left 24 more needing medical treatment on campus. I guess the night of decadence turned into the night of decadent drinking problems. The university's dean said they've decided to call it quits, saying the event was more about alcohol than fun. Who knew that students drinking too much at a party would be a bad idea? I thought that was a rite of passage. The university's message highlighted a recurring issue, though. Students consuming hard liquor like it was water during parties like this have led to hospital visits and a lot of very awkward parent phone calls. You know it's bad when emergency personnel are like, yeah, we're going to need backup and maybe a therapist to help your kid with their drinking issues. Back to last fall's party, it was so out of control, it ended early, which is kind of like a comedy show where the house rolls the curtain down mid-act because they realize, oh boy, this is not going to end well. Rice officials have paused all on-campus parties until after spring break. Maybe they were hoping students would forget how to mix a drink in the meantime. An advisory group was called in to look into this whole ordeal, but apparently their big advice was nothing. They said nothing. Talk about phoning it in. So with that, they made the decision to permanently cancel the night of decadence. I say it couldn't have been an easy decision to keep these students safe. But Rice University, they rose to the occasion, and they have ensured that the only thing students catch at parties is an education and not an STD. Safety first. In crab news? No, not those kinds of crabs. Get your head out of the gutter, but do grab your mittens, because the Aclopolis is coming. Kill me. Forget those murder hornets. Step aside, lantern flies. New York's new invader? Chinese mitten crabs. The little fellers are causing quite a stir on Long Island. And no, these crabs are not here on a friendly visit. They've been spotted near Long Island and in the Hudson River. These hardy, scruffy crabs are making waves, and they are not the fun kind of waves. Are there fun kind of waves? I guess if you surf. I don't surf. What kind of schmuck gets in the ocean and surfs? Not important. Now, these mitten crabs, they are not here to knit you a sweater. They've got pom-pom-like claws and a terrible reputation for causing ecological chaos. They first showed up in New York back in 2007, and they've been hanging around the U.S. since the 80s. I guess they have commitment issues. They will not leave. They are hard-shelled hooligans, and they are the bullies of the marine world. They outcompete local marine life, they steal fishing bait, and they can even cause riverbanks to collapse. This, my friends, alliteratively, is a crustacean catastrophe. And just when you thought, hey, Long Island, they deserve it. It's not just New Yorkers who have crabs. They're also wreaking havoc in Europe. However, I guess they just got so tired of bratwurst, they decided to see what the Big Apple has to offer. The good news, though, these crabs are easy to spot with their mitten-like claws. Do watch out for the juveniles. They are tricky little devils. And if you do see one, the New York State Department of Environmental Conservation, the NYSEDEC, wants you to freeze it and report it. It's funny, freezing is how I got rid of my crabs. Now, these crabs, they aren't all bad. In China, they are a delicacy. Their eggs are used in everything from soup dumplings to, well, more soup dumplings. But before you plan your next seafood feast, remember, it's illegal to export them due to their environmental impact. So unless you want a legal team, keep those mittens off the mitten crabs. Coming up in a matter of moments, it's Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday with Gary Direnfeld. And we will discuss all things Father's Day, the good, the bad, the gray-haired, probably, unless your dad's young and you're young. But do I have many young listeners? Garapist is the man who is here. It is Therapy Thursday on a Wednesday. Gary Direnfeld, family therapist, marital therapist, social worker, so many things. Gary, you are here to share your Gary nuggets.
Oh my God, I'm cracking up. Garapist. Yeah, and like I told you before, somebody said apparently I have Gary nuggets. And they meant it in the loveliest of ways.
Oh, they weren't referring to your testicles.
No, not at all. Those pearls of wisdom, those nuggets of wisdom, Gary nuggets, and you, David Cooper, have labeled me Garapist.
I have.
Oh.
That's not how you described your Gary Nuggets before we started taping, but, you know, it's just plausible deniability for the future sexual harassment suit that I will be filing against you. Gary, Father's Day is coming up. You're a father. End of fact list. Are you excited?
You know, I don't see Father's Day as really being for fathers.
No?
I see Father's Day as being for the kids. I think it's important for kids to recognize their fathers. Listen, that's assuming that their father is worthy of that recognition. Before everyone gets mad at me.
There are those deadbeats out there. I understand that.
Yeah, there's some fathers that aren't worthy of the recognition. But assuming that the father is worthy of the recognition, I think it's a good practice for children, because it combats the egocentricity of childhood. It combats the view that, we as the parents are solely responsible taking care for the kids, and the kids can be oblivious to what we do, what our contribution is as parents, not just fathers. I said this for Mother's Day too. Anyways, so I think Mother's Day, Father's Day, it's an opportunity for us to help kids to think beyond themselves and give back, in this case, to the parent.
Ask not what your parent can do for you. Ask what you can do for your parent. That is the famous quote from, I don't know, nobody.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, I just made it up. I think JFK might have said something similar. I don't know.
That's right. It has the ring of familiarity. I like your spin.
But no, I get that. What do we get for the dad who has everything? My mom's easy. I mean, I'm asking for a friend, not asking for me. I'm asking for me. My mom, white roses, and she's good to go. I don't know why she likes white roses. Aren't you supposed to have those maybe at a wedding? Isn't that white roses?
Look, here's what I want. I want just a little bit of recognition. I want to be told that I'm loved. I want to feel included.
Sorry, go slower. I got to write this down. Recognition, want to be loved. Got it. Yeah. What's the next one?
I want to feel like I'm a part of your life and that I'm meaningful to you, and that you have some sense of the responsibilities that I took on in caring for you.
Gary, you're a part of my life and you're meaningful to me. I appreciate the work we do together. It's great stuff. I always love it, and I appreciate the help and the content and the personality, and I consider you a friend. So it's Gary Day. Every day's Gary Day.
Thanks. And for Father's Day, that's what hopefully our children can provide us that sense. And whether it comes in the form of a little card that the young ones have made for us, or a fake tie, or a real tie, or I don't know.
Fake tie? What do you mean a fake tie? I'm making a tie out of construction paper? What's going on here? Fake tie?
Somewhere, it's not on my desk now, but somewhere I have a tie made out of construction paper. So absolutely, it's not the gift, it's the sentiment that counts.
But what if you don't have a thought in your thick brain like me? Like every birthday of my girlfriend's, I'm like, oh, what am I? Because she has more money than me now. I used to be like, okay, I get her a gift card to a store she likes. Now it's like I got to think about something.
To all those children who may be listening to this podcast, when you are in the company of your father on Father's Day, look at your father and say, you know what? I know that you had to do a lot to raise me, and I am appreciative. And I love you.
Wow.
That's it.
I know you did a lot playing hockey and fishing and not being there while I was a kid. No, I'm kidding. My dad's not that bad. I mean, he wasn't around a lot, but I mean, he wasn't around for a normal parent that is around.
Okay.
Which is enough.
Did he work? Did he provide to the family?
Yeah, he fed me, I will.
So you know what, Dad? You provided for my sustenance, and for that I'm grateful. This is just about expressing some appreciation, recognition, and gratitude to the old man in your life who did something for you, to provide for you.
We had a very rigid kind of, maybe a 2-week calendar of dishes. We had the salmon, we had spaghetti and tomato sauce, then we had spaghetti with tomato sauce and meatballs. Those were two different things. Chicken teriyaki. We had like a rotation. I was definitely fed. I never wanted for food.
let's say you have a parent that wasn't there in a way that you do feel grateful, and it's still Father's Day. There may be an opportunity to repair relationships on Father's Day. And, Dad, I do harbor resentment for what has transpired in my growing up under your care. But I'd like to let you know that at some point in our lives together, I would like to have a better relationship with you.
Yeah, yeah.
That too can be said on Father's Day.
Which brings me to forgiveness, but I actually want to stay here for a second. I do have one issue with these days. Mother's Day, Father's Day, maybe Christmas, to a lesser extent Thanksgiving. They're fine. They're great. But for anyone who has a narrative that the relationship maybe with the family, on Father's Day, the father, Mother's Day, the mother, where it's very broken.
Yes.
Everyone kind of celebrating it and shoving it down your face, and the music playing in the drugstore around Christmas is just another reminder of a bad situation.
It is so inauthentic, and it can so smack of bullshit and hypocrisy. And so, I'm not shoving Father's Day down anyone's throat. If that was your growing up experience, if your dad was abusive, if your dad was, abusing drugs and or alcohol and wasn't present and appropriate in a way that he should have been, you don't need to go in gushing.
Yeah.
You don't even need to go in. At the end of the day, some people still have to protect themselves from an inappropriate parent. And just because we label it Father's Day, that isn't a day that you have to gloss over the bullshit and be inauthentic.
I agree.
Yeah.
I just mean these holidays, for those of us who...
They can be very difficult.
Yeah. Or they
Absolutely.
cause pain. Like, people whose family
Yes.
situations cause them pain when they see these depictions in the media of Christmas, or their father causes them pain, and then on the radio all day, it's Father's Day this, Father's Day this, human interest father story. It's like, it's such a...
And I will say to people as well, if your situation wasn't ideal, that's code for really not good. You don't need to pretend with other friends and extended kin either. You don't need to throw the old man under the bus, but you don't need to pretend that it was anything other than it was. And you can look at people and say, it's something I wish I was in a position to celebrate. My experience doesn't allow me to. And so you don't need to go into the dirty details, but you can let people know that, no, this is not something I'm going to jump on a bandwagon for.
However, to borrow a term from the LGBTQ community,
okay,
chosen family. Like if you have a family of your
Oh,
friends or
isn't that
your
wonderful?
family,
If
maybe
you
there's a
have
father
that.
figure in the friend group, or maybe during Thanksgiving you assemble a Friendsgiving, even though your family are jackasses and ostracize you because you're not a Jehovah's Witness anymore, or whatever it was. I just mean there are narratives that run parallel to the mainstream ones that you
Yep.
can make work. So there's good and there's bad there.
Listen, you may have had a particular teacher that in your mind played that kind of fatherly role, and they may not even know that. But wouldn't it be cool to send them an email, a note, something saying, my growing up experience wasn't quite there. You were the closest thing to a father figure for me. You may not have realized that, but I'm appreciative for the attention that you gave me.
You could send your teacher the following phrase: I will be your father figure, put your tiny hand in mine. I will be your preacher teacher. That's a creepy song, actually, now that I think about it, that George Michael song. I think it's about having inappropriate relationships with younger people.
I don't know the song.
It's creepy. What's great about George Michael, and you're going to have no idea what I'm talking about, but you should look it up, and anyone listening should look it up. The Wham song, Wake Me Up Before You Go Go. Do you know that song?
I certainly heard it. I couldn't tell you what the lyrics are.
Wake me up before you go. Anyway, long story short, if you watch the music video for that, George Michael and the rest of Wham are running around wearing pink t-shirts that say choose life. This is not a pro-life. This was before choose life was co-opted by pro-life.
Okay.
They're wearing pink, and they have the most eye makeup on I think I've ever seen on a man. And when that music video dropped, everyone still thought they were straight, and that's my favorite part about the 80s. Nobody thought George Michael was gay when they saw that video. When he came out years later, everyone was shocked.
Okay.
All right, I've gone on such a wild tangent here. I've lost you.
I know. I'm trying. And Father's Day?
Yeah, no.
You know what? It doesn't matter how your father identifies, whether, because it's also LGBTQ2 Pride Month, and we can still celebrate.
Yes.
Father,
No,
father
I'm not knocking on being gay. I'm just saying no one suspected it, and that's wild to me.
Right.
And I've gone so off topic.
Yeah. Like, I'm trying to follow you, David.
It's okay. I lost me, and we're going to come back and find me. We're going to talk about forgiveness, because I think me and Gary are going to clash, and I look forward to that. I'm here with Gary Direnfeld. I just got lost in my own mental corn maze, but we are back for Therapy Thursdays on a Wednesday. We were talking Father's Day. Now we're going to talk forgiveness. I'm here with Gary Direnfeld. Gary, welcome back to you.
I'm still trying to get my head around the...
Watch the music video. Wham! Wake me up before you go. That's it. That's all I have to say.
Okay, I'll forgive you on that one.
Thank you.
You want to talk about forgiveness?
You were talking about maybe reaching out to a parent if you're at a point in your life where if the relationship's broken, you're thinking about thawing. You're thinking about warming the relationship as a way to say, hey, maybe we don't get along now, but in the future, I'd like to have a relationship with you. This reminded me of forgiveness. And last night, I talked about the science behind forgiveness, how it's good for you, your mental health, your physical health. And I believe that forgiving people is not just for the person you're forgiving, but for you. I feel better having forgived people that I've held grudges against.
Yeah.
Not holding a grudge is a great relief of a burden, which to me is synonymous with forgiveness.
Well, that's kind of core for forgiveness. When we talk about forgiveness from a psychological perspective and a benefit perspective, we're really looking at it from a self point of view. That as we, like you just said, let go the grudge so that you can release yourself from carrying that anger. Mm-hmm. That is said to be a benefit to a good many people.
Okay, so you agree there, but you differ from me saying that forgiveness, you don't actually believe in it as much as I do.
Well, I want to discriminate a little bit and say it's fine for some, it's not fine for others.
Okay.
And some people, it's actually, from my perspective, and I can't say that the research will necessarily support me, but that's okay. But I think it's helpful for some to hold a grudge to a certain extent and in certain situations. It's not across the board, because that helps remind us of places we shouldn't go. People can confuse forgiveness with making amends and reestablishing a relationship. And forgiveness doesn't necessarily include that.
Yes.
Again, it's what you do for yourself to let go of the grudge. But wisdom may have it that this can still be an inappropriate or dangerous or abusive or problematic person, in which case it's still good to maintain a boundary, to not get back into a connection, a relationship with that person, and to keep your distance. So sometimes if we don't let go of all the anger, we may be better adept at maintaining the boundary. And that can leave people in a safer place, quite frankly.
For me, forgiveness doesn't mean you're going to rebuild trust.
Right.
And I hear what you're saying, and what I'm reading from it is, well, if you have an ongoing negative relationship with someone, that's not the time to forgive. It's after the precipitating incident, maybe years later. It's
No. Some people are going to choose to forgive the very next day, which is fine. And some people come to that from a religious perspective. It's about letting go of the grudge, and that can be immediate. My concern is that for some people, they equate that with reconnecting, reestablishing a relationship, which can put them back into a situation of exploitation, danger, abuse, etc. And that's why I want people to be careful about those confusions. And where I say sometimes it's good to hold on to a bit of that grudge because it reminds you of why you are keeping the boundary.
I see what you're saying. I guess I'm thinking more like something dramatic happens, a relationship ends, And then you
Okay.
forgive them, and you maybe don't reestablish the relationship, but you forgive them.
Okay.
And
That's fine.
framed like that, you don't have any issues with it.
I don't have any issue.
Good.
Right. So our discussion, it's situational.
Sure.
It's the phrase, it depends. It depends. So, under the right conditions, my goodness, being forgiving, letting go your own anger, and you're not doing it for the sake of the other. You're doing it for your own sake, so you can just decompress and move on. The other thing that goes along with this sometimes is people's need for what they call closure. I need closure. Well, if you are seeking that closure from someone who is inappropriate, abusive, exploitive, they're not going to give you that closure. And as you seek for more, it's going to embed you further in your own self-destruction. So closure in those circumstances is something you also give yourself. You don't seek it from the other. You say to yourself, I know what transpired. I know how this person isn't good for me, isn't healthy, isn't safe. And I know that forms the reason, the rationale for me to have this firm boundary.
When you see victim statements in court drama TV, I feel like in the U.S. they televise certain courtroom proceedings. They shouldn't, but they do. It is entertaining.
Okay. Yep.
And something awful happens, like god awful, like a murderer's being put away for life, maybe even in the U.S. getting the death penalty. And then you see the family and the friends of the person, the victim, speak. I'd say 9 times out of 10, it's anger. It's a grudge. It's vindictive. It's righteous anger, and I mean that in the purest sense.
Yes, yeah.
It's righteous because they murdered your loved one.
They've been wronged in the worst of ways.
In the worst of ways. But 1 out of 10 times, or maybe 1 out of 100, who knows? And often it's religiously motivated. I'm not the biggest fan of religion, but I do think this is one thing religion gets right. You'll see someone, even that they're like, I know you're going away for life. I know you're about to get the death penalty, but I forgive you. You'll see the father of the person affected say that. And I always just think that's so touching. And when I see that, I don't think that these victims or the family of the victim are saying it for the murderer. I think they're saying it for them, to give them a little closure and give them a little peace. They're working through it. I think that's lovely. Like, they're not saying release this criminal. They're saying you deserve your sentence, but I forgive you. You're going to take your punishment.
And then let's look at it situationally. Sometimes we can take a perspective where we understand the forces and factors that led to the inappropriate behavior of the other. And when we understand the context of the other's behavior, we can be empathetic as well as upset for what we've endured. But through that empathy, we can extend and be forgiving, not necessarily accepting.
Yeah.
Okay. And from time to time, those who have transgressed against us do legitimately feel a guilt, do legitimately recognize the error of their behavior, do legitimately want to take responsibility for it. And, up to us if we want to accept that responsibility, again, not the behavior that led to the incident, but we can do that too at our discretion.
To be clear, I do not judge. And when I see a family give a statement saying how angry they are at the murderer, I don't judge them. I don't think it's there. They have every right to be angry, and they have every right to say something in the sentencing hearing that's awful and negative. That's their prerogative, and no judgment. I do think
you didn't come just to be David. You didn't come across to me as judgy.
Okay, I just mean it's very moving to me when you see like people have no business forgiving at all. I won't forgive someone who cut me off while driving, and like these people are forgiving murderers, knowing that they committed the crime after they've been proved guilty.
Yeah. Wow.
I just think it's moving and powerful, and I'm always sort of touched by it, and I always think it's more for the people forgiving than it is the criminal or the transgressor.
Yeah, absolutely. Because I got to live with myself. I got to reconcile this, and I don't want to eat myself up from the inside by holding the grudge and holding the anger. And so from that perspective, we talk about forgiving. It is something you do for yourself to, in a sense, let go the pain.
Wow. Wake me up before you go. You gotta watch it. Just go on YouTube. The band is Wham, WHAM. George Michaels is the singer, the front man. And you're gonna watch the video and you're gonna say, how did people not realize he was gay?
Happy Pride Month.
He was a proud out gay man, which is great. But in the 80s, he was like so many others in the closet. And just that video, how did people not know? It's an amazing thing.
I think it's amazing how you can go from one topic to another, and I even follow you.
That's your mistake. That's your funeral. And Gary, thank you for following me down the meandering path of stream of consciousness interviews.
Take care, David.
Check out Gary at yoursocialworker.com. Gary Direnfeld is his name. When we come back, tech expert Carmi Levy is going to join me. He's watched WWDC. I've read the articles. That's Worldwide Developer Conference by Apple. And Apple has an exciting new product that you definitely haven't heard before. It's even got its own unique acronym. That acronym? AI. Apple Intelligence. It's like a 4-year-old worked for whatever marketing agency launched this one. We'll unpack it and more. Carmi Levy up next. Tech. I feel like I say that word 1,000 times when we have our next guest, technology expert Carmi Levy. Carmi, welcome. How was your trip to Dryden, Ontario, our nation's capital? And by our nation, I mean Canada.
Our nation's bug capital, that's for sure, because good Lord, you do not go outside without a very thick layer of off on you. Lovely, lovely town, Milltown. It's where my son, daughter-in-law, and granddaughter live. And we made it there this time in one piece. No encounters with moose on the Trans-Canada Highway this year, which we are very thankful for. Had an absolutely lovely visit. We all got sick, which as it will often happen.
Gotta be careful for the West Nile. Those mosquitoes take west of the Nile very seriously because Dryden is very far west from the Nile.
Very much so, and I'm presuming they carry some stuff we don't want to get. And so, yeah, we wore long clothes and we covered up big time, and we were very careful going outside, and we still got bitten up till the end of time. So it doesn't work. Whatever strategies you use to keep the bugs from coming after you, my wife says we're all just too sweet for our own good, and we got bitten up. So yeah, we're back and hurting right now, but we're glad we went.
Dryden is, as my father would say, and yes, this will be bleeped, in the middle of nowhere. What do you do there? Like, are there restaurants? Like, what's the family evening? Like, do you go to the movies? Like, what does a family do to enjoy themselves? Is there a zoo? I don't think there's a zoo. What do you do?
There is no zoo. It is a town of about 7,000 people, but it is the largest city for about an hour in any direction. So it's a bit of a sort of a central hub, because there are a lot of people who live out in the middle of nowhere, truly, and they come to Dryden for civilization. It has a Walmart. It has a downtown. It has banks. It has businesses. It has a McDonald's. It has a Tim Hortons. It does not have a movie theater, but it does have a drive-in. So there's that. There is a bowling alley. I've never been to it, but I hear it's amazing.
I mean, drive through a bowling alley. That doesn't sound too bad.
Not at all. And it's in the middle of probably some of the best hunting and fishing grounds on the continent. So people come from all over. It's a huge center of tourism. And people come from all over, and they go to hunting camps and fishing camps. And because summer is now ramping up, there were a ton of American tourists in pickups pulling trailers.
Oh, murdering animals. They drive up there to get some good murder on. Yeah.
I offered them my camera. Said, look, don't shoot them with a gun. Shoot them with a camera, because then you have pictures to take home. They didn't want to hear me. But it's a very busy place. And because it's right on the Trans-Canada, you get a lot of through traffic. Everyone who's going to Winnipeg to the west, or to Thunder Bay to the east, or simply crossing the country, they've got to pass through Dryden at some point. So it is a super busy place with lots of hotels, lots of business going on. Wow. And quite frankly, a pretty cool place to live. It's quiet. There's no question. But when you walk outside at night, you can see the skies, because there is almost no light pollution. It's beautiful.
Maybe I'll retire there. Doesn't sound too bad.
It's hey, if you're working remotely, why not? Great bandwidth, so they're very well
Look
served
at
by the internet.
That's how
Yeah.
you assess town by town. Great. It's got great bandwidth. I'm going.
Exactly. As long as I have power and connectivity, I can do what I do from anywhere. And so the first thing that I did, like when my son moved there to be with his now wife, yeah, we made sure that, okay, is there good internet? Will I be able to do live television? Will I be able to do live meetings on Microsoft Teams or Zoom? And when we got there, we realized they probably have better internet than we do. So yeah, if for anyone who's looking for an inexpensive place to work and work remotely, Dryden certainly qualifies. That could be the next big thing.
Is it cheaper than living in Manhattan, in New York? I don't know. I got to compare prices. Could be neck and neck.
Do not look up the real estate listings in Dryden because you will cry at how affordable things are there.
I don't even want to get started with real estate.
Yeah, don't. Yeah, it'll make you sad.
So, well, fun fact about me, I'm not into murdering animals. My brother, who I think represents the gay Jewish hunting community of Canada, he is an avid hunter, and he hunts with these waspy guys. And I imagine that they go out and they like make fun of gay people and make jokes about their wives, and he just like fits right in. It's very strange because he'll go to these dinners and it's just this Jewish gay guy and like 15 waspy hunter types, and he's indistinguishable from them. He sort of transcends stereotypes, and I love that about him. But I don't like hunting, but I do like fishing. I'm an angler.
There's something lovely about sitting in a boat or sitting on a dock for hours on end, just quietly waiting for the fish to come. I'm a terrible fisher, but I enjoy the activity because it's so cathartic, really great for mental health. My son has taken it up. Of course, he grew up in the suburbs, so you would think he'd be the last person on planet Earth to, become a fisher, but that is his favorite quiet time thing to do. When after the baby's put to bed and he's finished work and he's got a little bit of time, he will happily get his fishing gear ready and he'll go out with friends the next day. He absolutely loves it, and I can see why.
Cool. Let's jump in. We got a lot of tech news to cover.
Yeah. Well, and I don't have any fish fry technology stories, so it's probably just as well.
I do wonder, well, there's all those fancy Garmin fish tracking GPSs and stuff, but that's like ocean fishing or I like fly fishing. That's my thing. Okay. Apple's www.dc. No, their worldwide developer conference. I'm always so excited by these things because I'm so excited to see the new gadgets they have. The laptops, the phones, the iPads. I never buy one because who wants to spend that kind of money? I just have this old Apple that gets slower and slower, probably on purpose by Apple secretly.
I like mine, yeah.
Year by year. But every time there's a WWDC, I think, okay, I'm going to buy the new iPad or I'm going to buy the new MacBook. And then I go on the website and I see the price. And then I think, I am not going to buy the new MacBook. But
the nice thing about WWDC is they announce software, so updates to the operating systems like iOS and iPadOS and macOS, that if you have an older machine in a few months, you're going to get it for free and you'll be able to use most of those services and features and apps for free. So it's the one announcement that Apple makes every year that you don't have to have your wallet cracked open ready for when these things go on sale, because in many cases they don't go on sale. We're just going to download them.
While that is true, I usually just skim past the software announcements and go right to the hardware announcements. But this year's, it's kind of hard to ignore all the software stuff that's going on.
Yeah, this is probably the biggest software announcement from Apple in a very long time. WWDC, of course, is Apple's developer-focused annual announcement, and that's really where the message is to developers. Here's where our software is going. Here's what you're going to need to develop apps and services in this new environment. And so this year's message to developers and to the rest of the world is Apple is going AI. And it's not just AI like everyone else. Apple wants to, of course, have its own AI story. They're not even calling it artificial intelligence. They're calling it Apple Intelligence. They're calling their personal AI experience. And so it's about an AI that knows you. It's customized to your needs. It understands your habits, your network, your schedule, your activities, and it's able to answer day-to-day questions. For example, I went on a camping trip with David shooting moose, and I want that picture of him in that really cool camouflage. Can you pull that up and then, send it to his mom, because I think she'd really like it. I can tell Siri that, and with AI, because Siri's gotten an AI brain transplant or will be getting one, it'll actually be able to do that without me having to go into all these different apps to do the tasks to make that happen. So AI is about to revolutionize the way we use technology, and Apple says their branded Apple Intelligence suite of AI tools is going to absolutely change the way we interact with our computing devices. It remains to be seen. It was a really slick looking demo, but again, it has to get into our hands for us to use it day to day to see if it's actually as good as they say it is. Siri had a really killer demo when it was released in 2011. We all know how that worked out once we got our hands on it.
Okay, first of all, can we just point to the elephant in the room? They are totally co-opting a buzz acronym, AI. They're like, everyone's saying AI, we'll just call it Apple Intelligence. So when you say AI and someone's got an iPhone, they mean Apple Intelligence. They don't mean artificial intelligence. That is so ridiculous. I love it. It's such a funny, marketing move. It's so ridiculous. I love it. I hate it, but I love it.
I think Steve Jobs would probably applaud that move. I think it's brilliant marketing. I mean, certainly if you're not an Apple fan, it's a little bit cynical because it's Apple trying to seize control of the narrative. But hey, this is probably the next big technology revolution that we're all going to have. And so Apple wants to make sure it doesn't get left behind. It was very slow to articulate its AI message. Everyone else has been announcing things. So OpenAI released ChatGPT a year and a half ago, and then Google released Gemini. And then Microsoft partnered with OpenAI, and even Amazon and Meta are getting in on the AI game. Everyone's getting in on the AI game, and Apple hasn't really said a lot. So it's time to say, okay, we've waited, we've watched, we've taken our sweet time. Now here's what we're going to do in AI. So it makes sense for Apple to say, we're not just going to follow everyone. We're going to do our own thing. It's not AI like you've seen from OpenAI. It's AI that's very customized, and we're even going to call it something different. It's on your device. It's secure. It's about the things that you do day to day that matter to you. It's not just opening up a website and asking stupid questions and getting crazy answers. So I think it kind of makes sense. It differentiates Apple a little bit, and it allows them to tell a different story, perhaps, than everyone else has been telling. It's too early to tell if that's actually going to work, but I think it's really an interesting strategic decision as their first step in the AI space. And Apple Intelligence, that kind of works for me because then I can still say that it's AI and not get called on it.
We're here with Carmi Levy. We're talking Worldwide Developer Conference where Apple announced Apple Intelligence, not artificial intelligence. When we come back, more on that. We are here with technology expert Carmi Levy. We're talking Apple Intelligence, Apple's big announcement from their Worldwide Developer Conference. They are going AI. And what you had mentioned before, Carmi, they're not the first one to this market. They are not the first mover. They're sort of waiting for other players to hit the market, make their mistakes, and pouncing a little bit late. And this is straight out of the Apple playbook. They're going to claim that they invented it all along. They're already doing that by calling it Apple Intelligence. This is what they did with the smartphone. They weren't the first to market with a smartphone. They weren't the first to market with a touchscreen. They weren't the first to market with a tablet. But yet when we think smartphone, we think iPhone. When we think tablet, we think iPad. They weren't the first to with an MP3 player. But for a long time, the iPod was the ubiquitous MP3 player. This is what they do. They wait, they let other people sink money into problems, and then just when a technology is slightly proven, then they come in and they say, hey, we invented this, and for some reason, the cult of Apple, the users start to believe it. They really do.
I think that's the very basis of Apple's genius. It's the reason why it is the biggest technology company on planet Earth, and it consistently sort of leads the way in terms of
what about
pointing us in the
NVIDIA?
direction.
What about NVIDIA, Carmi? NVIDIA overtook them in terms of market cap recently.
Of course they did, but is NVIDIA going to be in the same position in 30 years? Apple has been at or near the top for the better part of the last generation, certainly since Steve Jobs first came back from his not so self-imposed exile, because Apple continually reinvents itself. It was a major player in computing, then it was a major player in music players, then it was a major player in services, and then ultimately smartphones with services on top of that. And so Apple has figured out how to reinvent itself probably more effectively than any other company on planet Earth. And the central strategy of that is never be that first mover, because let everyone else make those early mover, first mover mistakes. And also let everyone else educate the public about what this technology is. Smartphones had been around for over 15 years before the iPhone was released in 2007. And the reason they all failed was they were clunky, they were expensive, and more importantly, we didn't have the behaviors to take advantage of them. No one really knew what they were good for. That killer app wasn't well understood. The public wasn't educated and trained. And so along comes the iPhone, changes the paradigm based on those 15 years of false start attempts, and then of course create something that's radically new, and of course the rest is history. Apple always does that, and I think AI is exactly the same thing. Everyone's been throwing themselves into AI for the last year and a half since ChatGPT, but no one really knows what that killer app is. We're playing with it, we're rolling up our sleeves, but it hasn't really been integrated into our day-to-day. It's still an app that we download. It's still a website that we visit. Whereas what Apple is proposing, bake it into the operating system, incorporate it into the services that we use every day, tell the story of how we pick mom up from the airport, of how we coordinate travel and book travel, and how we look for photos and solve little problems that we can relate to. And I think that's the genius of Apple. And that's why when skyrocketing demand for AI-based hardware slackens off, what's NVIDIA's next trick going to be? I don't know. But I'm pretty sure Apple's going to have a second and a third and a fourth act as well. So 5 years from now, let's have this conversation. I'm pretty sure we'll still be talking about Apple. NVIDIA, maybe not so much.
In fact, 5 minutes from when I first said it, I just checked the ticker. Since WWDC, Apple's market cap has overtaken NVIDIA's. But briefly, NVIDIA was worth more than Apple last week. Okay, let's talk privacy. Apple, they're not the worst tech behemoth about privacy. They're not great. I'm not going to give them a gold star there. But
no one is. Everyone's got a dark side.
They have gone up against certain app developers like Facebook, like Instagram, like TikTok, and they've basically instrumented privacy features in iPhone or the iPhone that says like, hey, you won't share photos. Hey, you can't have access to this. Hey, you can't run in the background. These permissions have to be explicitly granted. I know fine-grained permissioning is part of the story here with Apple Intelligence. I can't. With Apple's AI.
Thank you for clarifying that.
But that did not stop Mr. Butthurt Elon Musk from thinking this thing stinks, and he threw a billionaire's tantrum. It's so funny when billionaires throw tantrums. I got to say, he took to Twitter.
Nothing like an Elon hissy fit.
He took to Twitter, or as he calls it, X. Again, I'm not calling it Apple Intelligence, and I'm not calling it X. I'm denying the names.
I'm with you. Yep.
But he took to it and he started saying, if you launch this, I'm not going to let Tesla employees use it in the factory. I'm like, what does Apple care whether you're letting people in factories use it? Like, as if they care, you know? I mean, maybe they do because of the publicity.
They're going to, because I mean, the last SpaceX live stream that I watched when they launched Starship on the integrated flight test number 4, just about every employee had an Apple device. And so what Elon Musk is saying is that everyone who works for his companies, if they incorporate AI into their devices, as Apple says they will, that they will be banned from all of his companies, and that even visitors who come to his sites, they'll have to check their devices in at the front door with security, and they'll be placed in Faraday cages for as long as they're on site. This is ridiculous. It basically means his employees are not going to be able to use their own devices. And I'm virtually certain that many of those employees are using company issued Apple devices. And so, look to history here. Elon Musk was a co-founder of OpenAI. He left the company under, let's call them not so great circumstances. He has had multiple lawsuits against the company. He just lost one when old emails of his were surfaced about profitability of the company, where they said something different than he claimed on Twitter. And he wanted at one point to be the CEO. And of course, we know Sam Altman is the CEO now. Elon wanted to be the CEO. The board refused his request. And of course, he went away with his tail between his legs. He's been essentially chirping at the company ever since. And so this is just yet another opportunity to take a shot at OpenAI, take a shot at Apple, maybe publicize the Grok chatbot a little bit more, because of course now he has a competing product. So this isn't about honesty in privacy and artificial intelligence. It's about Elon Musk being upset that he didn't get what he wanted. And now he's essentially taking his butthurt to his platform, as he always does. And so, Elon, really sorry. You can threaten, it ain't going to work.
So it's your hypothesis that if he did ban it from workers at his various companies, it actually would pose a problem for Apple? I'm not convinced.
Well, no, I'm not for Apple. It'd be for his companies themselves, because they are using these products internally to develop their systems. They have Apple infrastructure within their their employees are using Macs. Their employees are using iPhones and iPads to design Starship, to design parts, to build workflows, to run engineering simulations. And so, for him to say, "I'm going to ban them outright," Elon, take a look at what your thousands of employees across your multiple companies are using. Most of them are using Apple products, and you're essentially saying that they're all going to go back to calculators and abacuses if they can't use Apple devices. I would love to see him try. It is not going to work. And quite frankly, Elon, if Elon Musk is so intent on banging the privacy and data integrity gong on AI, he really should look at his own products, because certainly X has played fast and loose with the rules. Tesla has played fast and loose with the rules on end user data. And certainly the AI tools that he is developing, including the Grok platform, are known full well as not particularly effective at monitoring or controlling end user security. And certainly there are questions about how these tools were trained in the first place, using content for which permission was not obtained up front. So Elon, look in your own backyard before you make accusations against others.
Do as I say, not as I do. That's another playbook from the billionaire man-child. Yeah, it's just so silly. I mean, he didn't get his way. He doesn't like what he sees, and then he thinks he can try to rally. And every day that goes by, every word that comes out of his mouth, you have people that are in the cult of Musk for sure. But the general public, we're not buying it anymore. If Elon spoke out against somebody 5 years ago, I might have listened. Now when he speaks out against somebody, I'm like, well, they're doing something right.
Yeah,
sort of
exactly.
He's just displayed himself to be such a child and so, I don't know, insecure. I feel like I'm in high school when I'm reading his tweets. No, you can't do that. I did that. It's just, he's a child. I
kind of have to stop reading his feed after a while. And unfortunately, the algorithm on X obviously prioritizes him above all else. So whether I want to or not, it shows up in my feed. And it just depresses me every single time. So of course I have to get off the platform. I think, the issue of privacy, and we certainly should be discussing it in and around Apple's move, because for on-device AI requests, Apple, of course, uses its own technology, and it controls it end-to-end. It's encrypted. The data is not available to Apple, and it doesn't go anywhere. It's deleted after the request is complete. But then, of course, if it's a more complex request, then it will ask you, do you want me to hand this off to ChatGPT? At that point, and there is a very legitimate question, how is privacy handled once it's in the hands of ChatGPT? Do Apple users have the same level of protection? What are those levels of protection? And this is an important conversation to have, but I think we should be having it not based on the behest of a sulking billionaire who didn't get his way, but really, in the context of this is AI, we should be discussing it. We should understand what we're getting into before we install it on our devices and start using it day to day. That's a healthy conversation. I think now that iOS is on the way, and the new versions of iPadOS and all the other products with the Apple intelligence built into it, I think we should be asking those questions and making sure that Apple provides details on them before we choose to update our products to use them.
We've all been arrested for firing fireworks out of a helicopter at a Lamborghini. It's a relatable problem we've all had. And Carmi and I are going to discuss a recent federal case where, can you believe it, a YouTuber was arrested for just that. The injustice of it all. Carmi Levy when we come back. We are back with Carmi Levy talking tech stories. Carmi, YouTubers can get up to some ridiculous stunts, and then they just say, it's a prank. It's a prank. You know, there's the guy who blew up a plane. Like, he jumped out of a plane, parachuted to the ground, and crashed it into a mountain thinking, this will be a great stunt. The aviation authorities aren't going to care about this. Like, these people don't learn. And a recent YouTuber was arrested for a very similar stunt involving a Lamborghini, which is a car many of us have access to. It's like, sure, Toyota Corolla, Lamborghini. These are accessible cars.
His name is Alex Choi, and he's got a little over 900,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he's been posting these kinds of, let's call them viral videos, for years, where he does outlandish things, and each video tends to get millions and millions of views. And of course, we know if you are a creator in the YouTube universe or the TikTok universe or Instagram, the more followers you have, the more views you can get on a particular video, the more advertising revenue you can generate. For a lot of people, if their audience is big enough, this is their career. That's how they generate revenue. And Alex Choi is no exception. And the more outlandish, the better. You do have to jump out of a plane. You do have to blow a car up. You do have to jump off a cliff in order to get people's attention. That's what people talk about. So what he did was he bought a Lamborghini. He rented a helicopter, got on the helicopter and used this sort of firecracker launching like device to fire incendiary devices at the Lamborghini to blow it up, which sounds like the basis for a really cool video. But unfortunately, federal law bans you from using an air vehicle for that purpose. You're not allowed to launch incendiary devices from an airplane or a helicopter or anything that flies. Surprise. Who knew? And then the second piece is he did this on federal land, which maybe he wasn't aware of this. I don't know. But of course, the video went viral. He uploaded it last year, and lots of people watched it, got lots of reaction, and then eventually someone from the FAA saw it and then started an investigation. And then they realized, because they were able to figure out where it was taken, because you can geolocate videos based on the data attached to them, also based just on the visuals. And they found out that it was in a place that, it's federal land. And so that opened up an investigation from the Bureau of Land Management and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives, the ATF people. And so apparently he was supposed to, even before shooting a video in this place, he was supposed to file a request. He's supposed to ask permission to shoot video there. So he was arrested. He was released on $50,000 bond. He could face up to 10 years in federal prison if he's convicted on all counts, based on this video that he made a heck of a lot of money from. And so, the question that becomes, same thing with the guy who jumped out of the airplane. It was a federal offense, and his case is currently working its way through the courts, and he could also go to jail and face a huge fine. The economics of this are interesting, because a lot of people go, well, why would I buy a $300,000 car and then destroy it? And the reason being is you can make a lot more money in advertising revenue than it cost you to buy the car as a prop, even in the first place. So, if you're into that kind of thing, and the more expensive it is, the more outrageous it is, the more virality potential it has. So they'll actually make money. So that video probably brought in more than $300,000 in advertising revenue, simply because so many people watched it. So he's already made a lot of money, but now he can go to jail, and the fines that he faces as this case progresses will probably wipe out any profit that he made. But the interesting thing is, this has been going on for years. We keep seeing cases like this. It's not stopping other people from coming up with their own outlandish ideas, recording their own videos, and taking a chance that maybe the feds aren't going to catch on to them. I got news for you. They will.
Is the idea behind the prosecutions to attempt to try to have a chilling effect on these crazy YouTubers and these crazy stunt makers? Like, is the federal government trying to say, hey, you can't do this crazy stuff that hurts people, that destroys property, that damages federal land? Like, do you think that's why they're going after these people? What would be the logic? I know we can only speculate, but what would you say the logic is?
I mean, if I were asked to speculate, I would say, I think they're trying to establish a deterrent. They're trying to hold up a few examples of particularly egregious behavior, and they're trying to put some big numbers on them, big jail sentences, big fines, big penalties, to deter anyone who might think that this is a really cool way to make money. And so, but the thing is, influence culture really doesn't work that way. In some cases, the bigger the threat of punishment, the more appeal there is to an influencer to try this in the first place. It's the reason people jump off of towers and then pull the parachute, feet from the ground, because it's the thrill, it's that risk that something really bad could happen. Well, prosecution is just one of those something bads that can happen. And unfortunately, for some people, it's not a deterrent. It's an encouragement to them. And that's why we keep seeing these year after year after year.
Do you know you can rent a helicopter? I have a friend who did this, and this is awful, and I don't condone it. But you can rent a helicopter in Las Vegas. They'll fly you out to the desert where there's feral pigs, and then you can shoot them with machine guns out of the helicopter, murdering the feral pigs. Now, they are a destructive, invasive species, but still awful, horrible. I would never condone it. I guess it's just not on federal land, or maybe you're allowed to you're allowed to hunt, but maybe not shoot fireworks. It's wild that you can do that.
Yeah, I can only imagine the videos that would result from that. And I'm pretty sure it's only a matter of time before some smart influencer puts two and two together and says, hey, here's my next TikTok idea. Let's go. Charge up the GoPros, kids. We're going to have some fun. And I feel sorry for the pigs. They're wrong place, wrong time. But at the same time, I think it illustrates that there's an entire community out there that is constantly looking for ideas that get us to watch online. What are we going to see in TikTok? What's going to trigger the algorithm? What's going to get a huge audience? What's going to give me a huge payday? And there's almost no limit. Shoot feral pigs from a flying helicopter? Absolutely. Destroy a Lamborghini using mortars from a flying vehicle? Sure, why not? What's next? I don't even want to ask, but I can guarantee you there will be a next. And I can also guarantee you we will all probably watch it. It's like a car crash. You don't want to admit that you're interested, but you probably are.
So we're talking big payday that these influencers get when they do stupid stunts. Taking the big payday theme, another thing that you can do that is definitely illegal, ransomware. You could start a ransomware company. You could infect people's computers with viruses. Maybe you encrypt their data, and then you say, hey, you got to pay me to get your data back. And while that sounds just a little bit bad, imagine if it's a bank's data, or a mortgage company's data, or an insurance company's data, a company that really needs their data, and then you steal it. You lock it up and you say, hey, send me $1 billion in Bitcoin. Well, probably not $1 billion, but $1 million in Bitcoin, and you can have your data back. There are groups that do this. Lockbit is one of them. While the story is usually a sad one, people lose their money. They might get their data back if they send it. It's an awful thing. There is a sort of uplifting one. And with this Lockbit company, it looks like the FBI are hot on their trail, which is kind of exciting.
Yeah, this is one of those rare pieces of good news in the cyber security space. Usually we talk about the latest breach, the latest attack, who was victimized, how much money they got in the process, how many people were compromised. But in this case, the good guys won. The FBI announced earlier this week that they've actually scored a victory against Lockbit, which is one of the most notorious hacking organizations online. They're responsible for some of the biggest breaches over the last couple of years. They've been around for about 5 years, a very shadowy group. But the authorities say that they have targeted some of the biggest organizations. I think Boeing was one of them, also government organizations in the UK, the National Health Service, the NHS.
Sick kids, right?
Yeah, sick kids.
Could you
Toronto
imagine
Public
hacking
Library.
a hospital that helps kids with cancer?
They don't care, right? Because it's all about profit for them, and they can profit on data. Healthcare data is among the most profitable because it's among the most personal, and it's probably the data that you'd want back most. And so the FBI has said, well, when a ransomware attack happens, they will infect the devices, or in fact the network, pop up a message saying, give me money or I will release it. If you give me the money, I won't release it, and I will then give you the keys to unencrypt it, and then you can go back to your life. And so what the FBI is saying is they have found the decryption keys for about 7,000 victims of successful ransomware attacks. And the total dollar amount in all of those attacks was about $1 billion that was asked for. So what they're saying is, if you were victimized by one of these Lockbit ransomware attacks, and you think that you might be, you might have paid the ransom, or even if you didn't, and you want access to the decryption key without having to pay for it, they've set up a website, ic3.gov, and you can go there and file a claim. And the FBI will actually give you the decryption key if everything matches up, so you can then apply it and go on your way without having to pay the bad guys to gain access to your data, which sounds great. And it is, it's a victory. I'll take whatever I can get. And I think we should, but the data is still out there. The bad guys still have their hands on it. So there's nothing stopping them, even once you've unlocked your system and gotten all of your apps and your services back on and your websites back up and running. There's nothing stopping them from, say, releasing it onto the dark web, maybe at some later point in time, and sending you another request for ransom. In other words, we have the data, we're going to release it, pay us this money, or you're done. So it's a victory, but it's not a complete victory, and it's only in a certain number of cases. There are far more than 7,000 attacks of ransomware across the world in any given year or at any given time. So this is kind of like a drop in the ocean. But at the same time, any victory is a good victory. And if you think that you might be among them, go to that ic3.gov website and see if you can maybe get access to one of those decryption keys yourself.
Carmi, thank you for going over this stuff with me. I appreciate your time.
I appreciate being here. Thanks so much, David.
Carmi Levy, technology expert. There he goes. Let's keep it going technology-wise. Carmi and expert Tony Five, our foreign correspondent from London, England, an idiot. Him and I are going to give our stupid takes on these stories and more. All that in just a moment. He's here. He's queer. I don't know. He's sucking on a
f***ing hell. How are you going to start like that just because I've got a lollipop in my mouth? My God.
You are sucking that lollipop like it's a yellow. Is it orange or yellow?
It's orange, like an orange wiener.
An orange wiener. I didn't know you were into orange people.
I do like orange people. It's not just you that likes Mirandas, eh, Dave?
Yeah, true. Don't call me Dave. Jesus. No.
Do you know what? Can I tell you something really strange?
What?
The minute it come out of my mouth, it felt really weird. And I hated myself for calling you. Oh, I felt disgusting. Do you know what? I felt so disgusting calling you Dave. I don't know why I said it. It may be the lollipop.
Could be the lolly.
I felt, even now, I feel dirty, like I need to go and have a shower. It's so alien to me to call you that name.
And now, live from London, England, it's foreign correspondent Tony Five. My agent Rob told me we need to talk over this music, Tony. What do you think about that?
Why?
I don't know. He thinks it's too long.
Are you paying him for his agency fees?
No, he's taking a cut of whatever I make.
He's taking a cut of nothing. He's taking a cut of nothing. Right, well done. Well done, Rob.
Yeah, well, eventually we'll make something.
I hope so.
So what's doing? I didn't see you yesterday. Look, you said you were tired. You said you were exhausted.
Yes,
it's fine, but do you sleep with your phone where you can reach it? Because you really have to try to sleep with the phone away from the bed.
I know. My sleep hygiene is terrible. So I'd had an absolutely horrific day yesterday. Today was even worse. I was up at 4 a.m. and I didn't get back home till about 6 p.m. and I'm still doing this shovel of a show. So, but with a lolly.
Can you just try for 1 week, do me a favor? Because when I did it, it changed my life. I went from a horrible sleeper to sleeping well.
So what do you do? Just turn off your phone, or you put your phone in a different room?
I plug it in and I keep it so my living
it's
room
not
and
in
my
arm's
bed.
length.
Well, no, yeah, my living room and my bedroom are kind of, I don't know, they join really not seamlessly. It's not a good divide. You've been to my house.
Mm-hmm.
And so I plug it just out of my bedroom, and if I need to set my alarm, I'll rest it on the floor so I can hear it. And if I don't need to set my alarm, I'll just plug it in on the table in the living room. I cannot reach it without getting out of bed, physically getting out of bed.
Wow. See, I think I do have an addiction because I check everything all the time. My phone buzzes all night with work. I'm checking on whether you've called me or saying, what should we do tonight or whatever. And it's loads of things. And you're right. I could just put it out of sight, just near my condom box, which I never go to anyway.
Exactly. That's in maybe a different country. I don't know. It could be in Wales
Correct.
for all I know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's a different country. You need a passport, basically, to get it. So I can put it there and then let's see what happens.
You should. I feel like
I'm going to try it.
The fact that you don't want to and you're resistant to it just shows that you should. And I started sleeping better. And now occasionally, like when my girlfriend goes to bed really early and I want to watch a show, I'll wear my headphones and watch TV on my phone. And then as I start to drift, I'll put the phone on my nightstand. And those nights I sleep terribly. Just the fact that it's there, knowing that I could reach it at any moment, just on a subconscious level, its very presence next to my bed ruins my sleep. And I do feel, even if you're not touching it, the fact that you could, I think keeps you up. It's like this weird irritant to your sleep system.
Wow.
And just try to get it away. Get it so you have to physically get out of bed. Not only that, you will wake up, because I would wake up in the morning and I'd stay on my phone for an hour, and that's an hour I could be sleeping.
Wow. This is going well, I think. Sponsored by Apple iPhones.
There you go. Are you excited for Apple's intelligence? Did you see the announcement? They're launching all these AI products, but they're calling them AI for Apple Intelligence.
I mean, come on. Their marketing's phenomenal, right? I mean, it's superb. Come on. Whoever's sitting there thinking of these things up is making Steve Jobs in heaven or hell, wherever he may be, give a big thumbs up, right, with his turtleneck.
I can just see, it's like a preschooler. I mean, it's genius, but it's like a preschool level of logic. Well, everyone's talking about AI. AI is the buzzword. What's the first letter in AI? It's A. You know what other word has the first letter A? Apple. Apple Intelligence.
Yes, yeah. I mean, it's phenomenal. What do you think of it? What do you think of the Apple version? Because they're always kind of late to the game, right? Like people like Samsung and stuff, they do it all early. And then Apple kind of roll down later on and kind of put their thing in. And it kind of, I like their ideas, but what's your thoughts on it? Let's talk tech. Tony talks tech.
Tony talks tech. Well, I was actually saying this with our tech expert, Carmi, earlier.
You talk to other people.
I do, believe it or not. Apple has a history of doing this. They enter the market late. They're never a first mover. And when they enter the market, they pretend like they invented it. They pretend like it never existed before them.
Correct.
Like they didn't invent touchscreens. They didn't invent tablets. They didn't invent smartphones. Yeah, iPods.
No, I know.
What about the Zune, baby? What about the Zune? No one talks about the Zune.
You want to bring the Zune back. This is the I believe this is the hill you're going to die on.
I love the Zune. I love the Zune.
I know you do.
It was such a bad product. So they wait, they kind of watch, and they don't sink their money into an untested market. And then as soon as the market's there on someone else's dime, they enter and they're like, we invented AI because the A stands for Apple. It's like so stupid. But honestly, it's kind of genius because they don't have to take those risks. And other people, like they tried to enter the smart car market early with this Apple Car initiative. They paid the price. The thing never launched.
Yeah. What happened to that?
I think they canceled the project. I don't actually remember, but I'm pretty sure they canceled the project. And
like bendable screens, that's the next thing that they're going to do. But they're waiting for Samsung to get all the nooks and crannies ironed out, and then they're going to come in saying that it's going to be a foldable iPhone or the iPold.
They invented folding. Before them, no one knew how to fold their sheets. It was just bed sheets everywhere. They'd come out of the dryer and
straight bed sheets.
Yeah,
rock solid. Flat, basically walking around with magic carpets, and then Apple came along and said, "No, we can fold stuff for you guys," and that's it. And that's how it was born.
And they tried to do it with laptop or notebook by calling it a MacBook, but that didn't work because notebooks already existed. So now they're like, "We'll take an acronym." So people don't even have to change their language. They can keep saying AI, but they're talking about Apple. Like it's so stupid, but it's so genius. Yeah, I mean, I hate this company. I think they're one of the most evil corporations out there. However, you got to hand it to them. It's well done. Round of applause.
It is clever. I mean, the first person that confuses AI, artificial intelligence, with Apple intelligence, there's going to be somebody at Apple fist pumping, just doing a lap of the office, going, "Yep, that was my idea, guys. That's right. That's me. That was all me.
And when they try to be first movers with this Apple Car thing, which I just checked, it was canceled earlier this year, they can't deliver because, you know, they don't know what they're doing. They can't copy anyone. They take the good parts of existing designs.
Yeah.
They Apple it up. They put a little bit of an extra design into it. They make it cool. Different colors.
Apple it up. You mean spray it white and stick a logo on it?
Yeah, I mean, if you look at a MacBook Pro, it's like a wonderful aluminum, well-designed laptop.
Yeah.
So they kind of like Apple their spin on it. And the iPod by today's standard looks like a clunky device. But back then, when you were looking at the Zune, the Zune was not a great device.
No. The spin wheel and all that. It's iconic, right? They make iconic designs, I guess. But I guess it's a lot to do with the marketing, the adverts that they do. I remember the first iPod advert, you know, with the silhouettes dancing and stuff. And I remember that vivid. I think it was the Black Eyed Peas who did the music for it. So everything about that advert, the colours, the music, the people dancing, it just made you want to be one of those cool kids, you know?
Yeah. And they, you know, if you think of the various tech products that were out there before them, like the Commodore, Microsoft Windows, DOS, like... They always emphasize design being important, design being paramount. It's got to look great. It's got to be very usable. And so that's kind of their secret sauce. They steal ideas. They enter a market that they didn't create, and then they add design to it and the backing of their monopolistic practices, and they dominate, you know? And it's impressive. I mean, it's deeply capitalistic and ugly, and they're definitely a closed garden. And their whole App Store methodology is awful. They like kick developers off and rip off developers. Having said all that, from a pure like money-making standpoint and from a pure like capitalist product launch standpoint, you got to hand it to them. They do a good job.
Were you an early adopter to Apple? Were you one of these people that used to use it when no one else did? When everybody was on Windows?
I hated it. And I got my first job in Silicon Valley, and they promised me I could use a PC. I wasn't using Windows, I was using Unix, but they promised me I could use a PC when they hired me. And then I got there, and there was a MacBook waiting for me, and they're like, oh, all our engineering tools are built for Mac. So they lied to me, and I was angry for the first year, but then I just got used to it. And music production products are pretty good on Apple, so that kind of keeps me doing it because I edit this podcast using an Apple suite of software. So I don't like it, but I use it. It's kind of the best available to me, but I am not by any means in the cult of Apple. If something better were to go along, I'd jump ship like that.
Really? Could you, because you've got an iPhone, right?
Yeah, but I don't like it.
Are you one of these people that could leave an iPhone tomorrow and get into an Android or Samsung?
Absolutely.
Wow. So you're not stuck. See, I'm stuck in the ecosystem. I'm basically Apple's bitch.
We're here with Apple's bitch, Tony 5. More of him in a moment. We're back with Steve Jobs' bitch, Tim Cook. Is he still around, Tim Cook? I don't even know what's going on at Apple. Tony 5, welcome in.
No, Steve Jobs is gone. Tim Cook's around.
Okay, yeah, Steve Jobs is slightly dead. He's somewhat dead.
See, all of his eye stuff didn't work then, did it, eh?
No.
Huh? See how smart he was?
I mean, yeah. It's funny, when he died, Apple hadn't really taken, like it was just the beginning of them taking off.
Yeah, I think he was the one I remember who would do those big yearly presentations and everybody cheered every word he said. I remember that I never used to think that people did that on the launch of products. And I don't know whether he created that or whether they did that before. Did Bill Gates ever do that when he launched Windows, like XP?
Yeah, they would do the big conferences and dance around on the stage. And there's some funny clips of Bill Gates and what's his name, Steve Ballmer. Doing like, and they're such like Microsoft, they were just such Poindexters, and Apple, it was like, nerds by Gucci, it was like cool designer nerds, and then Microsoft was like nerds,
Yeah, and you had didn't you? Was Steve Wozniak?
I mean, he was
well?
kooky, yeah. But like Microsoft, they're wearing the pocket protectors, and Steve Jobs is wearing the designer black sweater. You know what I'm saying?
Yes. The high trousers versus Steve Jobs. Quite nice cultivated shoes, Italian shoes, chinos. Yeah, I get that.
Ruthless as a business person, though. He would fire people and terrorize people and all kinds of stuff.
Yeah, I heard, I'm curious about what these, because you've probably known them or met them or been in rooms, like people like Mark Zuckerberg. I wonder what he's like as a person. There's so many memes about him being robotic and being slightly on the spectrum, but
Yeah, he's got to be on the spectrum, right? Like watching him be
Yeah.
interviewed, he's something missing there. Yeah.
So where do you think Apple's going to go next? What's the next big thing after obviously they're doing this AI thing, or Apple Intelligence as we've called it now?
Yes. I don't know. It's kind of like it's the wild, wild west with this AI gold rush, and I don't know what's going to pan out. I think it's going to be a lot like the early .com boom. I think there will be players that rise above and are lasting, but I think there's going to be like pets.com. I think there's going to be stories. If you don't know what pets.com was, it was like a pet supply store on the internet, and toys.com is another one, eToys. They were supposed to just be toy and pet retailers, and they raised hundreds of millions, and then they crashed and burned, and people invested, and they lost all their money. I think it's going to kind of be like that. We won't know which products will be lasting and useful and good, and which will just disappear into vapor because they were a solution looking for a problem kind of a thing, as they say. That's the idiom.
Are you one of the believers that a lot of the tech now that is being released to market has been around for many, many years prior, but is only released on the public market now? So, for example, this ChatGPT and the way it works and whatever, that it's been historically used for maybe more covert or maybe military applications, and that is now being released.
Yes and no.
Okay.
I think the technology, not necessarily. I think the computing power and certain types of systems. So like GPS was classified for a long time.
Absolutely, for years.
And then it was released in a pared down fashion for the general public. Now you can use the high quality GPS. I think any kind of navigation guidance, weapon systems. I think number crunching, so raw computing power like mainframes, supercomputers, I think the military has those. But AI, I mean, the actual science behind it is not that complicated. Like large language models, the research that kind of explains how to do it has been out there for 20 years. But what's changed is the computing power and the price per, megaflop or gigaflop or teraflop or petaflop. It stands for floating point operations per second. But the amount of accessible computing power to companies for cheap, I mean, it's still expensive, but cheaper, has just doubled and doubled and doubled exponentially to now where you can launch these products. 5 or 10 years ago, you couldn't afford it, to run queries and train data sets and store data sets. You just couldn't. So maybe the military had it, but I don't think how to do it was a secret. That came from academia in a theoretical capacity well before we saw ChatGPT, OpenAI, or any products that used it, period. Large language models, this is not new science. This is not new computer science.
I was having the reason I'm saying this, I was having a conversation with a friend of mine, and we're both in the same industry. We work in UAVs and drone deployment. And we were talking about how 25 years ago, the drones that were used then in defense applications, military, and sidestep industrialist, like, for example, surveillance and things like that, you can now buy that level of technology on Amazon for $25 and have it delivered to your house tomorrow.
I think drones, probably what you're saying is true. Like drones, the technology came early and first because the government poured money into it and then didn't release any of their findings to the public.
Correct.
But things like large language models and theoretical computer science stuff, that research has been coming out of universities since computers were pretty basic.
Right.
So I guess that's the long version to answer your question, yes and no. I think drones are a perfect example of it's defense, governments pour money into it, and they do not release their findings to the public. So the answer for that will be yes. Same with weapons. Like I can't start a nuclear bomb startup tomorrow using available science.
I mean,
I could, but I'd have a lot of science to do. I'd have to come up with the centrifuges. I'd have to come up with ways to refine heavy water. Like I would have to do it all myself. But
David, I'll give you one word.
What?
Groupon.
Nuclear weapons Groupon training. Yeah.
100%.
So I think, yes, it's there. And then remember the Snowden leaks with...
Yes.
That wasn't really complicated technology. That was just the government had the computing power. They invested in the systems, and those are billions of dollars, and normal companies wouldn't invest in systems like that to track you. And plus, they couldn't force telecom companies to give them access to every phone call and every phone call's metadata. So it kind of is yes and no. I'm not this conspiracy theorist that when I see all new technology, I say, well, the government had it before. But I think for certain classes of things, it's decidedly yes. And we know it in some ways and we don't in others. But I think for ChatGPT and AI, I think the answer is no. However, the government might have had it in the sense that they bought it. They bought the computers and were running them before any other company.
Sure.
Like they spent the money before. Now OpenAI can spend the money because it's a lot cheaper.
Yeah. So, like, do you believe in the whole, well, not believe, what are your thoughts on the whole Big Brother, being the surveillance and how your data is stored as a person?
I don't know. I think there's not enough information to go on, but if we extrapolate from the Snowden leaks, and knowing what we know about what the U.S. government does and what they've been capable of doing from the years since then, yeah, there's probably surveillance programs that would shock you. I just don't know what they are. And so I think you could drive yourself crazy speculating. Another one, I don't know what happened with JFK, but you could drive yourself crazy speculating, or you could just go live your life. I mean, yeah.
But it doesn't bother you on a daily basis. You don't think, like, for example, do you overly protect your data? Do you think that there's any chance in your lifetime that stuff would be thrown back at you, for example?
I hope not.
Okay. That's interesting.
I can't live my life like that. Otherwise, I just wouldn't plug into the internet.
But it develops this sense of neurosis. You can see how people are, like, I look around now, and I wouldn't have said it before. I see how some kids, some friends' children are always on TikTok, and they give out so much information that I wouldn't dream of doing. And then I think, well, that's just the way they're brought up, to be really like open wounds. So anybody with half a brain you can see how they can be exploited so easily.
Well, we've got half a brain between the two of us, I'd say.
But there's nothing that we do that we're ashamed of.
There's so much that I do that I'm ashamed of. This show?
Yeah, I mean, it's lucky that this show's not public, really, and that no one listens.
Well, we've got our one listener. And to you, listener, thank you for listening.
I mean, can you imagine if Big Brother is listening to this? It's on some data server somewhere, and some poor CIA, FBI, NSA, NAACP agent is listening to this and has to categorize this as something. What poor fella, I mean, poor old ChatGPT is having to listen to this and somehow categorize this.
Well, I hope that they can use AI to assist in the listening of this, because the thought of listening to everything that comes out of my mouth is just, I feel sorry for this government agent. So I would hope that they just listen to it using a bot, and then they say, this podcast has 2 idiots, and that's the summary that the government gets.
I mean, if you are listening to this, Mr. Federal Agent, please do send an email to David, and I will send you a postcard.
So Federal Agent or anyone else listening, send me an email, david@jew.pizza. That's david@jew.pizza. .pizza, not .com. Tony will send you a postcard. All you have to do is send a crazy person your home address.
Yeah, is it like, what is it, NSA 1 NSA Street, USA?
That's my address. Tony, thank you. Fine. This was fun. I feel like it was a good tale from my Carmi Levy interview. You get smart tech and then stupid tech. I love it.
I was, honestly, a little bit jealous about you talking to somebody else, Carmi Levy, but, I've evened the tables. Let him talk about something to do with the UK.
Next week with Carmi, he'll talk about London. Thank you, Tony.
See you later.
That is our show. Happy Wednesday. Happy hump day. Send your friends a camel emoji. Don't send me one. And if you want that postcard from Tony, send me an email, david@jew.pizza. He sent them before, and all you have to do is trust Tony with your home address, which you definitely should not do.